What's up, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about parody news, the importance of it, how we got to where we are today with it, its evolution, just everything about it. um, Parody news, pretty simple. It strives off of satire. For those who don't know what satire is the use of irony. In my words, I would say it's used to kind of bring an entertainment factor to articles to really kind of hook the audience into the clip or the writing, whatever it is. The use of satire dates all the way back to about ancient Greek with great Greek philosophers like Socrates and Plato. We then see it continue to be used throughout like the Roman Empire with some of their literature and writings, and then fast forward a little bit to 1830, we see the New York Sun here in America, the first newspaper to reach the masses here in America, but they used satire pretty heavily. Again, we look through an American literature during this time, the 1800s, a lot of use of satire. One famous author, Mark Twain, he's famous for his use of satire. You read lots of his books. I've read some. I've read Huck Finn. I've read Tom Sawyer, a couple others, and he is known for satire. Again, fast forward to about 1975 on NBC, Saturday Night Live, and this really, in my opinion, catapulted parody news to where we see it today. I remember my parents, they were in about high school around this time, and they tell me like how big it was and how cool it was. You know, you would tune in every single weekend to see who the guests were, what the skits were, all that stuff, you know. And this was like the first parody news show on TV, and it was on NBC. It was one of the channels that everybody got and everybody watched, and you watched as a family, you watched with your friends. It was an attention grab every single week. Again, fast forward a little bit to 1988, The Onion, based out of the University of Wisconsin. Since then, they've won lots of awards for their writing, use of satire, but that they've really grown from just like a university newspaper to a national grab that a lot of people know about, so that's pretty cool. One interesting fact to me was reading the text. It said people in the ages of 18 to 49, 80% of people between the ages of 18 and 49 tune into parody news. And I thought this was pretty interesting. I thought it was a little high, to be honest. Now, if that stat said ages 18 to 25, ages 18 to 30, 80% get their news from parody news, or they tune into parody news, I would say that's accurate, maybe even a little higher. But for me, like what I think, ages you get into 30s and 40s, I would think people tune into the news or use other platforms other than parody news. But it was interesting to know that that's not the case. For me personally, I don't tune in like to parody news that much. I enjoy it. I like some of the hosts, some of the shows. Like for me, like I'll be on my phone scrolling through YouTube, like sitting in bed at night, and I'll see like a Jimmy Kimmel clip come up from a couple years ago with like an athlete I really like, or a politician or actor, whatever it is. But if I see someone interesting, I'll click. Or Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy Fallon's probably my favorite. Views don't align with him, but I think he does a good job at what he does. So yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting, just especially me and the people that I know, you know, we're not waiting up every night to watch Colbert, Trevor Noah, like any of these people. So I just thought that was pretty interesting. For me personally, I get my news from Twitter. It's just a little easier. I can get it as it comes, as it happens, breaking news, I get the notification. And I don't have to like wait until 5 o'clock or some now like late shows like 11, stay up till 10, 11 midnight, whatever it is. So moving in, is parody news honest? It's in the literal sense, it is not honest. I mean, most of these people on these TV shows are comedians, but they strive to do a good job of presenting news to you. It just, you know, they'll use sound bites and they'll clip it to like 15 seconds of a 45-minute speech to kind of fit what they're trying to do. They're still trying to bring news, but they're also comedians. So in the literal sense, no. Parody news is not honest. Another thing that we have to look out is fake news, the term that's really kind of been branded the last 4 or 5 years. Just there's a lot of bias out there, and bias is inevitable. We all know that, but there is a lot of bias, and you really have to fact check. You gotta do your research on who's speaking, what they've said in the past, all that stuff to make sure that that aligns. So, is parody news independent? So this depends. So you look at some shows like Colbert Show, Trevor Noah, some of these shows on Comedy Central, which is on cable network, which is owned by Viacom, therefore not independent. But there are some networks out there that are independent. They are their own, they run themselves, they're free from censorship, and they're, off the top of my head, I can't think of any. Didn't see any in the text, but it depends on what you're looking at. And lastly, productivity. It is productive. It's telling the story through a different perspective than most people hear. But they're still presenting the facts. They're still telling the stories. They're still breaking the news. Like for instance, go to Jimmy Fallon. Compare Jimmy Fallon talking about President Trump, and you look at Fox News talking about President Trump. It's going to be two completely different things, but they're still presenting news, So in that sense, parody news is productive. So that was very interesting. Parody news kind of taken off in the last 40 years or so, and it's become a real big part of our society. So very interesting read, and see you guys next week.